Hey folks, World Events Network. This short video is going to show you the evil the US and British governments have portrayed on the people of this world through perpetual wars in recent times. Please watch and leave a comment on the section below. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a difficult moment for America. Today we've had a national tragedy. Two airplanes have crashed into the World Trade Center in an apparent terrorist attack on our country. I have spoken to the Vice President, to the Governor of New York, to the Director of the FBI, and have ordered that the full resources of the federal government go to help the victims and their families, and to conduct a full-scale investigation to hunt down and to find those folks who committed this act.
Bombarded with messages that Osama bin Laden is planning to attack the United States of America and Israel. And I'm telling you, be prepared for a major attack. But it won't be Osama bin Laden. It will be those behind the New World Order who once again want to take the guns and the freedom away from the American people, because we're the only ones left in the world who can oppose the destruction of freedom in the world and the implementation of a one-world totalitarian socialist government, and that is the goal. Now, how stupid can you be? Can you believe it? Supposedly, a CNN reporter found Osama bin Laden, took a television camera crew with him, went into Osama bin Laden's hideout, interviewed him and his top leadership, his top lieutenants and colonels and generals in their hideout. This is a CNN reporter with a camera crew. And he came out and told everybody, within 3 weeks, Osama bin Laden is going to attack the United States and Israel. Now, don't you think that's kind of strange, folks? You see, because the largest intelligence apparatus in the world, with the biggest budget in the history of the world, has been looking for Osama bin Laden for years and years and years, and can't find him. The FBI also, under the leadership of Louis Freeh, has been looking for Osama bin Laden for years and years and years and years and years and many years, and can't find him. Some doofus jerk-off reporter with a camera crew waltzes right into his hideout and interviews him. And you know what his budget is? Zip, zilch, nothing. Now, that tells us two things. Either everyone in the intelligence community and all of the intelligence agencies of the United States government are blithering idiots and incompetent fools, including the entire apparatus of the FBI and all of their personnel, or they're lying to us. They're not looking for him at all. And the second is the truth. You see, the CIA created Osama bin Laden. They recruited him. They trained him. They found his leadership. They brought them all together. They showed them how to fight the Soviet Union in Afghanistan, and when that was over, they still continued to fund him and train him, and they're now using him to help bring about world government by making him the big boogeyman, because they can't use Saddam Hussein anymore. Did you ever hear of Osama bin Laden before you heard of Saddam Hussein? When did you start hearing of Osama bin Laden? It was after Saddam Hussein and Iraq were supposedly neutralized in the Gulf War, because they needed a new boogeyman. But they're not looking for Osama bin Laden, because I'm telling you right now, if I were the head of the Central Intelligence Agency, within 2 weeks I would have him dead or in custody without fail. Without fail. If I had those assets and that money, he would be mine. I would own his terrorist ass within 2 weeks without fail. A reporter from CNN, and his little camera crew got into Osama bin Laden's secret hideout and conducted an interview. If you don't believe me, tune into CNN. They're probably running it right now as I'm speaking. And if you believe it, you are one of the stupidest jerks that ever lived on the face of this earth.
I apologize for the fact that the intelligence we received was wrong. I can also apologize, by the way, for some of the mistakes in planning. You can't say that those of us who removed Saddam in 2003 bear no responsibility for the situation in 2015.
But I'm, Jackie, in no doubt at all about your responsibility in this. And 2 million of us on the streets of London told you so at the time. And for you now to try and wash your hands of your share of the responsibility, I'm afraid that's a spot that will not out. All the perfumes of Arabia will not expunge that spot.
And all of your poetry, George, doesn't prevent people from being murdered and massacred in Iraq and Syria at the moment. I'm not washing my hands of what happened in the past.
You killed a million people in Iraq.
That is a separate...
You killed a million people in Iraq. It's incredible that you have the brass neck to be sitting here now urging another Iraq war.
George, if I was still in Parliament, I would be there tomorrow, living up to my responsibility to answer the call of the Iraqi government and people to help to support them. And the fact that you aren't is something that you will have to live with.
Let me ask a final question to you, George. If not bombing, if not intervention, how do we deal with this cancer?
Give Iraq the weapons that it's already paid for but haven't been delivered. Strengthen the Peshmerga. Strengthen the governments of Iraq and Syria, and ask Saudi Arabia, Turkey and Iran to fight this battle. It's their battle, not ours.
We feel deeply for people in Lebanon and people in Israel who are the innocent casualties of this conflict. Of course we do. And we wanted to stop, and we wanted to stop now.
I think what's happening in Lebanon is really grave and would require an immediate action by all concerned, starting with the United States and the UK, in order to stop this atrocity that's happening in Lebanon.
When you see big American cargo planes loaded with bombs touching down at a British airport and flying onto Israel, those bombs then are dropped on your country, what do you think?
This is not helpful at all. I think this is not helpful at all to continuously supply Israel with further weapons and further, let's say, machinery of war.
And we wanted to stop, and we wanted to stop now.
British forces may have already engaged in military action over Libya, but back in Westminster, a relieved government now has the full backing of Parliament. A 6-hour debate saw MPs vote overwhelmingly to support UK forces' involvement in enforcing the no-fly zone. But it wasn't an easy ride for the Prime Minister, who faced several uncomfortable questions.
Many people will ask questions, I'm sure, today about regime change and Gaddafi and the rest of it. I've been clear. I think Libya needs to get rid of Gaddafi. But in the end, we are responsible for trying to enforce this Security Council resolution. The Libyans must choose their own future.
But if Cameron has his political mandate, there's less support from a sceptical British public. Only 1 in 3 agrees with the action, while 2/3 are either against or don't know. Britain's government has been at pains to stress the legality of the intervention in order to distance itself from the Iraq campaign, which divided the country.
A recent ruling by the Court of Appeal in London has declared UK arms sales to Saudi Arabia unlawful following a campaign by anti-war activists. The court found that the British government failed to properly assess the role of UK-manufactured weapons in the deaths of civilians in the ongoing Yemeni civil war. A Saudi-led coalition has been embroiled in the war since 2015. The Saudis, who back the internationally recognised Yemeni government, have long been accused of carrying out indiscriminate airstrikes in civilian areas held by Iranian-backed Houthi rebels. So what role could weapons manufactured in Britain have had in human rights violations by Saudi Arabia? Reports from 2016 saw evidence of UK-made munitions, including cluster bombs, being used in airstrikes against civilians. The destruction of infrastructure and blockading of supplies to rebel-held areas by the Saudi coalition has also contributed to widespread starvation and sickness in parts of Yemen. Between 2010 and 2018, the UK was the second largest exporter of arms to Saudi Arabia. UK sales accounted for 21% of Saudi Arabia's arms imports during the same period, making up 43% of the UK's total arms exports volume. This trade relationship creates billions of pounds in revenue for the UK arms trade. Court of Appeal justices found that the British government's decision to license the sale of arms was wrong in law because they made no attempt to assess whether Saudi Arabia had violated international human rights law during the war in Yemen. The court stopped short of suspending UK arms sales to the Gulf power, but ruled that ministers must assess the risk of future humanitarian law breaches by the Saudi-led coalition when deciding whether to allow arms sales. The government has put a hold on new weapons sales to Saudi Arabia following the ruling, but says it will appeal the court's decision.
We're political prisoners! We want political status!
Sands, Bobby, anti-H block, Armagh, political prisoner, 30,492.
When one spends each day naked and crouching in the corner of a cell resembling a pigsty, staring at such eyesores as piles of putrefying rubbish, infested with maggots and flies, a disease-ridden chamber pot, or a blank, disgusting, scarred wall, it is to the rescue of one's sanity to be able to rise and gaze out of a window at the world. Today, the screws began blocking up all the windows with sheets of steel. To me, this represents the further torture of the tortured, blocking out the very essence of life, nature. Here, my torturers have long ago started and still endeavour to block up the window in my mind. I have always taken a lesson from something that was told to me by a sound man. That is, that everyone, Republican or otherwise, has his own particular part to play. No part is too great or too small. No one is too old or too young to do something. So, Mukhara, for what it's worth, I would like to thank you all for what you have done, and I hope many others follow your example. And I'm deeply proud to have known you all, and prouder still to call you comrades and friends. I may die, but the Republic of 1916 will never die. Onward to the Republic and liberation of our people.